Gonna do our first in-person interview, and I'm actually grateful to say that it's one of my day one homies since we was young. When did we meet? Like middle school?
Yeah, it was a while back, you know,
Like
15, 20 years, damn near.
Something like, yeah, definitely something like that. Say like 2000, 99 or 2000. But we're gonna just jump right into it. And I know a lot of you guys already know JB, finally free JB on TikTok. His name, Justin Bradley, on Facebook. We're gonna go into just a small thing about our, when we were younger, but it's gonna lead up to the things that caused us to be where we were and where we are with our addiction and penitentiary life. Go ahead and let them know a little bit about yourself, the basics.
Yeah, so, I'm the youngest of three. Growing up, I grew up in a household full of people that struggled with addiction, of course. So, being in that environment and growing up in that environment, I became part of that environment. And, at a very young age, I started experimenting it with substances and whatnot, and 9 years old. And, as life progressed, so did my addiction. And it went from something that I thought was cool to do to something that I felt like I had to do. And, that's really what ran me downhill and led me down the life of incarceration and substance abuse.
I could relate to that. I was around it myself, but I know what you mean by feeling like it went from something fun to like, damn, I need this just to escape in my mind, or physically dependent, like at one time. I wanted to say something, and we're an open book over here. We ain't gonna have no filter as usual. You said something on one of your videos that you tried certain things at a real young age. What was that all about?
Okay, so like I said, when I was 9 years old was the first time I tried drink and trees. I was 12 years old, first time I tried soft and go fast. And I was sitting in the living room watching everybody jump up and run back to my dad's room. So I asked my dad, I said, man, what's going on? He's like, man, I don't really want you to. I said, no, screw that. I see y'all running back there. What's going on? He's like, man, give me like 10, 15 minutes and come back. So I waited out that little bit of time, and I went up there. I went back to his room and whatnot. And when I went back there, he had both of them out. And he's like, all right, try this one. About 10, 15 minutes later, he's like, all right, try this one. And he's like, which one do you like better? And of course, I like to go fast better because it was stronger, it lasted longer, it hit harder, and everything like that. So, he's like, the first one was that soft, the second one was that go fast. And, that introduced me to the go fast at the age of 12. And, that's been something I've struggled with my entire life.
Damn, that's deep, y'all. I was 14 when I tried the white, soft, but never the other one that he just mentioned till I was 26 years old. For real, I've done every other thing under the sun, but for whatever reason, I was never around that until 2016, which was 1 year before I went and did my 7 years. I did try, in 2004 when I was 14 is the first time I tried the other, and I remember immediately when it smacked me, I remember thinking in my mind, how could I get some more money together to go grab another G of this right now? But we wanted to, make sure we let this be known. We already collab a lot. People have already correlated me and him together, not only because we're in the same area, but a lot of our people watch each other and vice versa, me and him. And we do want to let it be known, we're not trying to make this shit sound cool. There are people who try to troll and say that. They can think that all they want. We want you to know what to expect if you find yourself in prison, the things you should and shouldn't do, and the repercussions that will come behind certain things. And we're definitely advocates for life after lockup and advocates for recovery. Now, do you want to go into what would you say led you to the life of any type of life of crime? Was it addiction, or was it just the adrenaline of it?
So, like I said, I started with my addiction at a very young age. And of course, with addiction, you use and then you want more. And then you use and then you want more. And it's a continuing obsession and compulsion. So, that obsession and that compulsion is what motivated me to engage in the criminal activity I did. So, I don't think that I would have did a lot of the things I did do if I wasn't under the influence of something. So, all four of my prison numbers, I got 3 state numbers, 1 federal number. And all of them had to do with the substance in one form or another, whether I was using, whether I was getting rid of, whether I was stealing something to get more, so like that was the vicious cycle, and it kept repeating itself. For 25 years I battled the disease.
I actually just got a memory from when I was incarcerated calling home, and my mom was with his children's mother, one of his baby's mom's mom. So we all know each other, the same people. And she told me on the phone that he went back to prison, and I was like, man, because at the time we hadn't talked for a while. So the first thing I thought is like, damn, he just got out, now he went back. But it's like night and day compared to that time period of what he seems now. That's why I'm saying I'm proud of you, because this time it feels like you just had enough. Like you seem like you got it together now, where you're like, you know what, 4 times is enough.
Yeah, again, like my first time going to prison, I didn't know what to expect. I heard all the stories, I heard all the rumors, seen all the movies. So, you get like this crazy picture of what it's going to be like when you get in there. And then when you get in there, it's a lot worse. And, the reality of it is when you're in that type of situation, you got to learn how to adapt and survive. You got to learn how not to become a victim, to where you can stay afloat without being an easy target. You literally got to break who you are down and completely desensitize yourself so you're able to function and to move in that type of environment, because you got to think they're taking the worst of the worst and putting us all together in one location.
Yeah.
So, if you allow something to happen and you don't react to it, or you don't handle your business or stand on it like you're supposed to, then it's going to become a repeating cycle. And more people are going to start engaging into it. So, once I did my first number, which was a total of 4 years on an F2 burglary, and, what wound up occurring is I had to adapt to survive in that type of environment. And, like the person who you are is not the person that comes back out.
No, that's true. My fiance, as of 19 years, we've been together, and we got engaged last year. We've been together since 2006. We were 16 and 14. A lot of you guys seeing this already know the story. She just recently told me how she was proud of me, because when I first came home, like he just said, you're not the same person. And I was very paranoid, very weird. I had a short fuse, to the point where I would get real agitated. I would have to be left alone. I'd go up in the room and get on my phone. My family would be down here like, hey, when are you coming down? I'd be down in 5 minutes. Like 2 hours would go by, because I was weirded out by everything when I first got out. And she said she remembered when I screwed the dining room window shut right here because it wouldn't lock. We got it fixed now, but at the time I did that because of the fact that I was that paranoid. She was like, you was stashing pipes and pocket knives all around the house and the backyard. That's embarrassing to even hear myself say that. But like out of paranoia, I wanted to be ready. That's just, how your brain is.
Yeah, and like the number one motivation and the number one go-to inside the walls is violence. So, you got to learn how to cope with this going on around you. And, that's something I still struggle with today. Like, I literally seen some unspeakable things happen to individuals. Did videos about the type of things I seen, what I witnessed firsthand. And, now since I'm coming back into society, when something goes wrong, most people would panic and most people would freak out. But, it doesn't affect me like that because, I've seen it so much. I've been around it so much. So, like you lose that sense of fear when it comes to violence. And, that can literally lead to something life-changing or life-threatening, So you got to be able to readjust. And I still struggle with that right now. I just got out the federal halfway house November 20th. So, yeah, like I'm still trying to get readjusted to everything. And, this time's kind of been a lot harder because, I rode my bid for so long by myself. Now that I'm out in the world, everybody's trying to get and be a part of my life. But, I live by the motto, forget me then, forget me now. If you weren't there for me then why are you trying to be here for me now?
Yeah.
And, that caused me to have huge social issues. And, I'm a people person. I can talk to anybody. I can deal with anybody. But becoming, like, emotionally attached is something I struggle with. But there are a few people I have succeeded in becoming emotionally attached with. So it's slowly getting better, but it's still something I battle every day.
Yeah, I respect you being honest about that. And it's the part of you saying you're very social. I knew you was going to be a good content creator. I've actually tried to give this option to many people with, like, over the, my 19 months or so. I've been home 2 years as of December 4th next month. But 19 months of that, I've been doing this. And over that time, the people I've tried to help, they'll do it for a few days and they give up. But with you, you kept pumping out videos, talking about your feelings, your shit going on, and it's therapeutic. And not only that, it never lets you forget about prison. And he started gaining followers as time goes on. So I had faith in you for that, as far as that part. The other part, it definitely takes time to become acclimated, and it's just because we're used to fight or flight. And that's another thing as far as like violence. I'm capable of violence, but I try not to go straight to that. When I was younger, yeah, I'm pretty chill, dude. But at the same time, I have no problem hurting somebody or even knowing I might get hurt. And that's how it goes. But like, I try to be the perfect blend of good and bad. Like, I want to be a good person, a good dad, just a normal, chill person. But at the same time, I'll fire on somebody if I have to immediately. So it's like, that's the combination I'm trying to be. And that's only in self-defense. How you feel about that with the whole like violence with violence thing? Do you feel like you could walk away from a fight if somebody called you a bitch right now, for instance? And it's a very sensitive subject, so I'm curious how you feel about that.
So with that, growing up in the household I grew up in, substance abuse and violence was a regular occurrence. And, I was always taught violence isn't the answer, but it's a damn good solution. So, I lived by that motto. I was quick to fight. I was quick to do whatever it took to stand my ground and to protect what mattered to me. And, I lived like that for the longest time, and it's got me in more trouble than anything. But as I sit here today, I'm not here for all the negativity. I'm not here for all the drama. I'm not here for all the BS. I'm here to carry a positive message. And in order for me to get this message out, I have to react to negativity with positivity. And anybody that's following me on Facebook, see people going on there, they trying to call me a snitch, they trying to call me a check-in, they trying to call me all that. But for the record, I got every single one of my paperwork. I got every single one of my documents from court, from plea deals, from everything along them lines. I know what I've done. I know where I've been, and I know how far I've come to let anybody jeopardize me being successful and to helping change lives.